Welcome to Noble Character Crafts. My name is Amy, and I'm coming to you from eastern Nebraska, where I live with my husband and our 5 children. Today is Friday, February 14th, 2025, so happy Valentine's Day to you all. Of course, this is a little bit belated by the time I publish it, but I hope you had a happy Valentine's Day if you celebrated it. This is a channel all about my crafty life, and today I have knitting and crocheting to share with you all. I will have links to the places that you can find me in the description box below, as well as the show notes for this episode. I have a garment that I'm wearing today that I knitted. This is the Close to Me cardigan designed by Lily Kate France. I knitted this last year. I finished it in November. I used Knit Picks Wool of the Andes worsted weight in the Cranberry colorway, held together with Knit Picks Aloft, which is a lace weight silk mohair blend, also in the Cranberry colorway. I made a lot of modifications to this pattern, but it was based upon the pattern by Lily Kate France, and I thought it was fitting to wear it today on Valentine's Day because of the bright red color. I have a few finished objects to share with you all. Oh, I should mention that these roses back here are from my husband for Valentine's Day. Aren't they beautiful? Anyway, I have a few finished objects to share with you today. The first is this pair of Scrappy socks that I was working on last time I recorded. I actually have made these as a gift to give to my friend Tina for her 50th wedding anniversary, which is today. So that's very exciting, and she and her husband are having a party on Sunday afternoon, so I'm planning on gifting these to her at that party. I cast on 60 stitches using US 0.2 millimeter needles. I did 20 rounds of 2x1 ribbing, and then for the stripes I just used, I guess it would have been 18 different minis for these socks. For each stripe, I did 10 rounds in plain stockinette. So I did 70 rounds for the leg. I did the slip stitch, heel flap, and gusset for the heel. And then the foot of the sock, I did a total of 80 rounds. And then a rounded toe. For my basic socks, I followed the instructions that Kay Linton gives for her free patterns, the Crazy Sock Lady. She has several free patterns for socks, and I follow her patterns, like her instructions for the heel flap and gusset and the rounded toe instructions that she gives. So I love how these turned out. I think they're so pretty. I started these on January 29th and finished them on February 10th. And they were pretty simple, but super fun to work up. I just love how they turned out. I've noticed this before, but on these, I think it's particularly obvious that I have a laddering issue, but I think I haven't blocked these. I don't usually block socks. I do block my Colorwork socks just because that helps the Colorwork to lay better, but for plain stockinette, I don't usually block them, and once you wear and wash them, this laddering, where I have a few loose stitches right here, usually works itself out, and you can't see it after they're worn and washed a few times. But it's not actually the first. I think people usually get a ladder on the first 2 stitches of a new, on their new needle. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure, I could be thinking of that wrong now though. I was thinking that it wasn't the first 2. I still do. Yeah, I think it's the last 2 stitches. I knit my socks 2 at a time on magic loop. And I think that it's the last 2 stitches that are loose, because I'm pretty good at tightening up that second stitch on my new needle. It's kind of hard to describe that, but that's a trick to not get laddering, is to tighten up when you're starting a new row, tighten up the second stitch, and that will help you not to get a ladder. But I think these loose stitches are actually from the last 2 stitches on my previous needle. So I guess I just need to try to tighten those up a bit better, because I think that laddering is really obvious on these, more so than what I recall in the past. Anyway, just an observation, but I don't think Tina will mind too much. I also had another little mistake here, and let's see if I can point it out. It's not so obvious, I don't think, on the screen, but in person I can see that there's a bit of a line right here because I got almost all the way done with the leg of this sock and I realized I had dropped a stitch way up here, and maybe I should have just stitched it up instead of trying to. I actually picked up stitches. I picked up that drop stitch all the way down here, which caused a little bit of a tightness right through this line. And again, I think that will work its way out once they're worn and washed, but it is a bit noticeable. But again, I don't think Tina will mind too much. She and I wear the same shoe size, so that's really handy. I can knit her socks easily, and I know that they will fit her well, and she's so knit worthy. She appreciates the things that I have knitted and gifted to her so much, so that is sweet. The next finished object is another scrunchie that I've made. So I've made several of these very easy scrunchies. This is the 20-minute scrunchie, a free pattern by Haute KIPPY by Bethany Sypolt is how it's listed on Ravelry. And it is a super quick and easy pattern. You just crochet over a hair tie. It's only 2 rounds. You use half double crochet stitches for the first round and then double crochet stitches for the second round. This one I made using some super bulky yarn. I had no tag for it at all, so I don't know. It's probably acrylic though, if I'm guessing correctly. And I used a 7mm hook. I did 20 half double crochets for the first round. And the pattern is pretty flexible to use any weight of yarn. You just make enough half double crochet stitches on that first round to cover up your hair tie. So anyway, I made this on February 4th, and it was a super quick and easy thing to whip up. I just had a small ball of this yarn that I found, and I thought, well, that will probably work into a scrunchie, and it did. But in fact, I actually ran out of yarn on the last 2. For the second round, you're supposed to do 4 double crochets into each stitch. And I think for the last 2, I only did 3 double crochets because I was running out of yarn. But it is not noticeable and it will work. This one's pretty stiff compared to the other ones. It's just not as malleable because the yarn is so thick, I guess, but I think it'll still work for a hair tie. It'll, roll up like that and it will be great. So that was an easy thing to whip up. And then I also made another project between the last episode and this episode, and it is another hot water bottle cozy. This is another free pattern called Warm and Cozy by Amy Molnar. I knit one of these for Tina for a Christmas present last year, and I had intended to make myself one as well, and I just hadn't gotten around to it until now, but I'm so pleased that I was able to make my hot water bottle cover as well. I started this on February 5th and I finished it on February 7th. I used US 6 4mm needles for the cast on and the decreases and the ribbing, but for the colorwork section, I went up to a US 7 4.5mm set of needles. The main color that I used is this dark brown colorway. It is Cascade 220 in Vandyke brown, and that is 100% Peruvian Highland wool. And then for the color work, I used 3 different colorways of I Love This Wool, the zigzag section and the checkerboard section are in Toasted Almond, so it's kind of a marled color. Then the cats and the hearts are made in the Biscuit colorway, and the mugs are done in, boy, that handle is like completely lost right there. I've just noticed that. I wonder if I can work those stitches out a bit better. The coffee cups are done in the Umber colorway. Good thing this is just a project for me. Those stitches are totally lost. That's crazy. They're like hidden in there. I held my yarn so that the contrast color would, I can see the stitches when I pull it out, but that's not very good. This side looks a little better. That's funny. I'll have to work on seeing if I can pull those stitches out a bit better so that they're more visible. I'll show this side anyway. I followed the pattern for, well, you start with at the bottom here, and I used a video by Very Pink Knits for Judy's Magic Cast On. And then I followed the pattern for, I didn't make any modifications up until the last Colorwork chart. Now she provides 6 different Colorwork motifs in the pattern. I used the cats and the coffee mugs from her pattern, but for the last one I made this modification in Tina's as well, and that's not very good right there on that heart. I'm nitpicking my work now that I'm showing it on camera. I don't like this little heart right here. It's got these funny stitches up here. I wonder what the deal is with that. I don't know. Well, my color work isn't the best, I guess. Anyway, it's just a hot water bottle cover though, so it doesn't matter if it's perfect, I guess. Anyway, I modified the pattern to add in this heart motif for Tina's as well for a couple of reasons. One, I just wanted hearts because I thought that would be sweet. And also the other charted patterns were a bit taller than the hearts are. And when I was making Tina's, I could tell that it was already getting tall enough and I didn't want to add too much length to the cover. I wanted it to fit over the hot water bottle well, so I just added in a heart motif instead that was a bit shorter in length. And the heart chart came from verypink.com, which is a free pattern that you can find online. I think I knit the ribbing for a little bit longer than what was called for. It's just 2x2 ribbing, and I wanted it to be extra long to fold over and still cover up the top of the water bottle cover. So anyway, I'm really happy with how this turned out. Well, besides my mistakes that I'm noticing, but I think maybe I can fiddle with those little stitches and make them more like I would like them to be. But anyway, I think it's sweet and I'm happy with it in general. I haven't used it yet since I used the hot water bottle before I made the cover, and I really wanted the cover because when it has the hot water in it, you can really smell that rubbery smell, and that kind of bothers me. So I'm hoping that the wool cover will help the smell not to be so strong. And I haven't used it since I've made it, the cover, so I'm excited to give that a try and hopefully I will like it. Okay, I've also finished 2 hats. They are both the classic ribbed hat designed by Jake Canton for Purl Soho. It's a free pattern on the Purl Soho website. I've been making several of these lately and have really been enjoying this pattern. It is knit from the cuff to the brim. I cast on the adult small size using US 3.25 millimeter needles. I was working on this one last time I recorded an episode, and for this one I held 2 fingering weight yarns together. The first one was the yarns of Richard DeVrieze, and it was just a plain gold colorway, and it didn't have a name. It was just called a second, like it had been a mistake, for example. And I held it together with some yarn that was donated to me by Danielle of Midwest Stitches. Here it is. It is Yarn Bee, and the colorway is called Sun-Wrapped Wheat, and that was 50% superwash merino and 50% lyocell, and I have quite a bit left over of that, so I'll probably use that for another hat, more of a scrappy hat where I'll hold different colors together. But I just love how this one turned out. I think it's so fun. I love the bright colors in it, and it fits so nicely. I just love the fit of these hats. They turn out really well fitting, I think. The ribbing in this pattern is just, I just love how it fits around the head. So, and I make it extra long so that the cuff can be folded up quite far. I knit this one to 9 1/4 inches before I did the decreases. The decreases are done in this pretty spiral. You might be able to notice at the very crown, I ran out of the gold color by Richard DeVrieze, and so I just held this Yarn Bee with itself just for like the last few rounds. So you can kind of tell that it's a bit more red in color at the tip there, but that's okay. And then I also made this one. I showed these yarns on my last episode because I had already finished a hat using this color, which a viewer of this channel named Margaret let me know that she thought that this yarn was from Hobby Lobby. Yes. Yeah, it's called Yarn Bee Urban Urban Chic is the yarn line. And this colorway is called Mint. And that, I was guessing that it was a cotton and acrylic blend. I thought maybe, I was pretty sure it was acrylic, and I thought maybe it had a bit of cotton in it, and I was right. It is 78% acrylic and 22% cotton, and it is labeled as a DK weight, which I was also kind of guessing on. Anyway, I had only I can't remember what the weight of that, I think it was maybe about 40 grams of that Yarn Bee colorway left over, and I needed a total of 60 something, I think. Let's see if I can find, no, I didn't write it down. Oh, this colorway is called Mint. I don't know if I mentioned that, but anyway, the Yarn Bee one. Anyway, I knew I didn't have enough of this Yarn Bee colorway to make an entire hat, so I got another bit of yarn from my stash, and this yellow colorway, that is Knit Picks Brava Sport in the Custard colorway, and that's 100% acrylic, but the colors I thought went really well together, and the weight, even though that was labeled as sport, the weights were compatible. And I just I strategically placed that big yellow section where the ribbing folds up so you don't actually see a ton of that yellow. And I thought that that worked really well to pair those together to make another hat. So this one's made in the same way, adult small, same needle size, 3.25 millimeter needles. Oh, for the gold one, I started the gold one on January 23rd, and I finished it on February 2nd. And then for this one, I started it on February 2nd and finished it on February 12th. And I knit this one to 9.5 inches before doing the decreases. So this one also fits wonderfully. I'm just making these to give, to donate or give to whoever, whenever, I don't know. I'm just enjoying making this classic ribbed hat pattern lately. And I have another one in the works. So onto my works in progress. The first one is being held in a bag that I sewed myself. And I am holding 2 fingering weights together again for this one. Both of these yarns were gifted to me. These are the 2 colors I'm holding together. The blue, the solid or pretty tonal blue color, was gifted to me in a swap that I did with Anna of Anna Knitter. And it is her own hand-dyed yarn, so Anna Knitter Yarns. And it doesn't have a colorway name, but it is 100% high twist merino from Australian sheep. And it's superwash, and it's so beautiful. I use this color in my Hexie flower blanket as well, so I had quite a bit left over from that. And this color I also used in my blanket. This was given to me by a viewer of this channel named Nicole, but it did not have a label with it, so I'm not sure what it is, but it's definitely a fingering weight as well. So anyway, I'm holding those 2 together and doing it again the same as the other hats. Adult small and same needle size and everything. And I've just done a few rows or rounds of this hat, and I love how it's working up. Isn't that pretty? The colors are super fun together. This one has so many fun bright pops of color that are really fun to work up. So that is such a nice project to have on the go. It's super mindless and enjoyable to work on. I can most of the time work on it without looking at it if I need to, but since I am holding 2 yarns together, and since it is, you know, done in ribbing, I can't do it perfectly all the time. Sometimes I might miss a yarn or get confused on whether I'm on a knit or a purl stitch, but still it's pretty mindless. So it's a great project to have on the go. Okay, my next work in progress, I am really close to the finish line on. It's being held in this big wool bag that I got from my husband's aunt, and it is the blanket that I've been working on for several, well, months now. I've been working on this project since November of last year. And it is called the Handsome Ripple Blanket. I got the pattern from this book by Leisure Arts called A Year of Afghans, 1997. And it's also available on Ravelry under a different name, Golden Harvest Ripple. The designer is Carole Pryor. Here is a picture of the pattern from the book. I am using some yarn that again was gifted to me by a viewer of this channel. It is Lion Brand Mandala in two different colorways. I'm using the Warlock colorway and the Brownie colorway. And I have finished the length of the blanket, and I'm currently working on trying to figure out a border for the edges to help it from curling. Because unfortunately, this pattern is curling on both sides. Someone said that they thought it was because there should have been some just plain double crochet stitches at both edges, and that probably would have helped it not to curl, but it just ends with a V stitch on one row and then a single crochet stitch on the second row. It's just a 2-row pattern, and that has caused it to curl in, as you can see here. So last night I started, well, let me show you first how far I progressed on this project since last time. So last time I recorded, I was down here where this marker is, and I finished a second cake of the Brownie colorway, and that ended with this cream colored stripe. And then I just did a few more rows in my third cake of Warlock, but I didn't finish that, and I thought it was already long enough. The Warlock colorway was just getting ready to go into some brighter colors, and this is what I have left from my last cake of Warlock. And I really didn't want to end my blanket with bright colors because I started with more of, I'm kind of all tangled up here. I started with more neutral colors at the beginning, and so I wanted to end with neutral colors as well. Anyway, here, let me see if I can give you an idea of how long it is. I did measure it, but I didn't write it down. It's very close to the recommended length and width for the blanket in this book, which is 48 inches by 64 inches. Mine's not exact. Mine's a little bit more narrow than that. I think it was like 46 instead of 48, but I think the length is pretty close to 64. Anyway, so it's a really good length. It's been covering me up as I've been working on it. Can kind of get an idea. Okay, for the border, last night I started trying several different things, and I started off trying just single crochet along the edges. That wasn't helping, although I had only done one row, but that wasn't helping too much to help it from rolling. Then I tried some double crochet stitches, and I've kind of just been playing around with a few different things. What I'm doing right now, and it's still rolling, so I don't know. Here is the edge. I've only done this little bit. It's still rolling, but I have been doing 5 double crochets into, so along the edges here, there are these sections that have more of an open space, and I've been doing 5 double crochet stitches into those openings and then a slip stitch into the single crochet on this next part right here. I don't know, I don't know. When I lay it down, it kind of lays flat. I think I might just do one side with this stitch and then wash the blanket and see if it will lay flat after washing it. And if it does, then I'll do the other side and then wash it again, I guess. That seems like silly to have to wash it twice though. Maybe I'll just try to steam it. Maybe after I record, maybe I'll try to steam this scallopy border and see if I can get it to lay flatter. And if that works, then I'll continue. And then I definitely will, when I'm all done, give the blanket a wash and lay it flat to dry and see if I can get it to lay really nicely. I don't know. If this doesn't work, I probably need to add more than just one row. So maybe I need to do several rows of single crochets, maybe. I don't know. I even looked online, what is the best thing to do for, you know, to help the edges of a blanket to not curl. And they suggested several rows of either single crochet or double crochet. So I don't know. It's kind of a trial and error at this point. But oh, somebody had asked what I am using for the border, and I still have, like I showed you, I still have a lot of this one Warlock, but I really don't want to use these bright colors for the border. I do have this small ball that is mostly neutrals. It's mostly this tan color. And then I also have a whole nother cake of the brownie colorway. And so I'm going to try to use as neutral, more of the tan colored sections for the border, just to try to keep that as neutral as possible. This yarn is DK weight and it's 100% acrylic, by the way. I've been using an H 5mm hook. I also originally chained 20 extra stitches when I started the blanket because the original pattern calls for you to use worsted weight yarn. So I added 20 extra stitches just to give it a little bit of extra width. And hopefully I will have that finished real soon. My next work in progress is being held in another bag that I made myself. And this is my Inishman vest that I've been working on for a little while now. Let's see if I can find my notes on this project. I started this on December 29th of last year. It is a pattern from this booklet from Knit Picks called Wood Smoke. It is a design by Mary C. Gildersleeve. Here is a picture of the finished object. It is supposed to be knit using worsted weight yarn and US 6 4mm needles, but I have had difficulty getting gauge with this pattern, and I am using a sport weight yarn. The only little bit I have left of this first cake that I'm using is right here, but it is a yarn from Knit Picks, a discontinued yarn from Knit Picks called Upcycle Alpaca Blend Sport Weight in the Squirrel colorway. It is 33% alpaca, 34% wool, and 33% acrylic. And I'm also using smaller needles, US 4 3.5mm needles, and I'm making the smallest size. And I'm not sure what my gauge is yet. I haven't blocked my piece yet to measure the gauge, but I would not be surprised if I'm still a bit loose in my gauge. It's supposed to be 24 stitches to 4 inches. And I had started this, oh, I forgot about that. I had started this on December 29th originally, and then ripped it all out and started all over again on January 21st. And I was making the third size, and I was using US 5 3.75mm needles, but it was turning out way too big. So that's why I have now started over and I'm making the very smallest size and using smaller needles. And I think it will work out. I hope it will work out. Anyway, it is a very beautiful cabled pattern. And there is a marker on here showing where I was last time I recorded. So I've only made maybe 2 inches of progress on this since I recorded last time. It's pretty slow going, but I am still enjoying it. It's knit from the bottom up There is an option to add some buttonholes, which I am doing. So I've now added 3 buttonholes along the ribbing, or the button band here is done as you go. So that's nice. And there's just several different sections of different cables, which are so beautiful. This is the back panel, which is the most striking, I think. And it's coming along pretty well. It's one that I definitely have to concentrate on and keep track of where I'm at on all of the different charts, because there's several different sections that you have to keep track of where you're at. So it's pretty, you have to concentrate on it, but I'm enjoying it nevertheless. I think that's all for that one. It's going well. I think it's going to be a slow project. It's going to take a long time for me to make significant, well, it's going to take a while for it to be a finished object, I think, even though it's a vest. I would think that would work out quickly, but it's not working out very quickly. I have another garment on the go, which is working up, I think, a little bit more quickly. It is a free pattern as well by Vandyke. It is called the Saga cardigan. Here's a picture of it. It is a design by Yarbo. And I'm using sport weight yarn for this project as well, but that is what is called for in the pattern. And I'm also using the recommended needle size for this, and I'm getting gauge, which is wonderful. But I am making a lot of modifications as far as the color work is concerned. I am using several more different colors than what is recommended. The original pattern only calls for you to use 3 main colors and then 1 extra accent color at the very end for the cuffs and the trim. But I am using a main color, which is this charcoal black colorway. And then I'm using 4 contrast colors. I'm using up a bunch of my stash for this project, so that's why I am changing colors so much more. The main color that I'm using is Columbia Minerva Skylark in the charcoal colorway. This is 50% nylon, 50% wool, virgin wool. And then the contrast colors I'm using are another one of those of the Columbia Minerva in the dark Oxford colorway. And the other 3 colors I'm using are Knit Picks Wool of the Andes Sport Weight in Pampas Heather, White, and Blossom Heather. And these are 100% Peruvian Highland wool. So last time I recorded, I was just ready to split for the sleeves. There is a marker here showing where I was. And I did split for the sleeves, and I'm happy with how it's working up. I tried it on after I split for the sleeves, and it was seeming to fit well. I haven't tried it on again. I need to do that to make sure it's still working out okay. But I am going to be, I've been starting to weigh my yarn to get an idea of how much each section takes, because I just have what I showed you for the Knit Picks colors, and I don't know if it will be enough to make the sweater fully color worked. I may need to stop the color work a little early and then just knit the rest of the cardigan in the main color, because I do have, I think, plenty of that. But I want the sleeves and the body to match. So I'm going to do one more section of the color work, which will be this section repeated, but with the gray, the dark Oxford gray color, along with the main color of the charcoal. Those 2 colors will be held together for another repeat of this pattern that will come next. And then I'm going to work on one of the sleeves to match. I want to make sure that I have enough of the yarn so that my sleeves and the body will match, so that the color work will stop on both at the same time. So I'm going to be careful weighing my yarns to make sure that I have enough to go the same length for the body and the sleeves. As you can see, this is being worked in the round, and I have added some steek stitches to the center here. So once I'm done knitting the body, then I will cut open the front and add ribbing to make it into a cardigan. which is what the pattern instructs you to do. I started off with the ribbing. It's 1x1 ribbing, and that is using US 2.5 3mm needles, and then the rest of the body is using US 6 4mm needles. And it's so much fun to work on. I'm really enjoying the color work in this pattern, and it's been really fun to work with all of these different yarns. I'm enjoying it a lot. I also am making a modification to this pattern and this pattern. On both of these sections, it calls for you to use another contrast color in the middle of these sections, and I am not. So again, another one where I'm making quite a few modifications, but I'm really happy with how it's coming along. And that's being held in this basket that I thrifted. My last work in progress is being held in another bag that I made myself. And this is the Colorwork Cuff Club pattern by Summer Lee for the month of February. And I'm thrilled with this pattern. It is so much fun. I think I've discovered that with the Colorwork Cuff Club, I really like the patterns that include a lot of different colors and more intricate design. I'm just remembering the November socks. Here, I'll put a picture of my November socks in here. And I loved working on that pattern and getting the different color combos for that pattern. And then this one I think is similar because it's more of a longer pattern and it uses a lot more colors. And I just really have enjoyed this one as well. Here they are. I think they're so beautiful. Aren't they sweet? I love them so much. They were so much fun to make. The colorwork section was so much fun to do. I cast on 60 stitches using US 0.2mm needles. I did 12 rounds of 2x1 ribbing. And then I increased my stitches to 72 stitches and I increased my needles to 3mm needles using 9-inch circulars, and I worked those one at a time. And that really helps me to get a good fit for my color work section so it's not too tight going over my high instep. I used a lot of scraps of yarn. I used a few yarns from Pineapple Yarn. I had gotten a set of mini skeins from her a few months ago. So I know this bright pink and the deep indigo color are both from her. Then this color back here, I used actually my last month's Colorwork Cuff Club socks. It's a pink color. It's called Blush Pink from Paint Box Yarns, but it looks more peach with these colors. You can hardly tell that it's pink, but just if you look at the skein by itself, it looks like a light pink color. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. The bright green is a Knit Picks Stroll in the Key Lime Heather. And I'm not really sure what this periwinkle color is back here. I can't remember where I got that from. But then after I get done with the color work, then I decrease my stitches back down to 60 stitches and go back to US 0.2mm needles and go back to doing 2 at a time magic loop. The main color that I'm using is a yarn that was gifted to me by Joy, a viewer of this channel, a long time ago. I had made a pair of socks using some nomadic yarns in the Rita Skeeter colorway last month, and that yarn was from Joy, and then this yarn is another one of the yarns that I kept when she sent me just a ton of yarn several years ago, and she had said I could keep whatever I wanted and then gift the rest, and this was one of the colorways that I kept. It is dyed by Molly of a Homespun House. I think this is pretty old though, because this is when she was still living in Berlin. It is on the Plump Merino fingering base, and it is, oh yeah, it says it's from 2018. February 2018 Harry Potter Yarn Club, and the colorway is called Ginny's Visit to Zonkos. It's 80% superwash merino and 20% nylon. And it is just absolutely gorgeous. So much fun to work on this fun colorway. I've done the heel flap and gusset decreases. So now I am ready just to do plain stockinette in the round for the foot. So I like getting it to this point and then just putting it on hold until I need to take it on, you know, on the road or something like that, so that I have an easy project to take along that I don't have to think about too much. So those are at a good point for that. So those are all of my works in progress. That's everything I have to share with you all today. So I hope you enjoyed seeing the things that I have been working on, and I hope that you're really enjoying the things that you're working on as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.